think dads are often surprised by how enthusiastic kids are for them to be involved. Certainly the dads we see in programs, when we get them wrestling with their kids, they're quite taken back by how keen their daughters are, for example, to wrestle and to be physical. And I think the energy that kids have when they're given a bit of encouragement to get their dad to be physical and engage rather than manage the child, like get the child to do something so then you can, make a cup of coffee, finish washing up, do something else. Like instead of looking after the child by getting them entertained by something else, to actually interact with them, I think that is something that kids really respond to. And we see the difference that children have when they get permission to do that and they go, oh yeah, I can say, hey, how about this, Dad,
The most important things a dad can do for his child in any context, whether or not there's mental illness in the family, is to love their child, is to love and care about their children, and to show that by being engaged with the children, by taking an interest in them, and a meaningful interest, by being actively involved with them whenever a father's able to do that, remembering that parents have jobs, mothers and fathers. Mental illness isn't the whole life of the family, it's part of the family's life, but where the partner or the dad himself has a mental illness, encouraging the child to ask questions about the mental illness, offering to speak with the child. But away from that, if they're little, reading them stories at bedtime, kicking the footy, playing games, being actively involved in their interests as well.
For dads who are in a situation where for a period of time they're not able to interact with their children, or their children don't want to have any contact with them, or their primary caregiver who has responsibility for them is denying them access, they're not responsible for things that they can't impact on and can't change. But that shouldn't mean that they don't do their bit in communicating a positive message to their children and trying to do things like sending birthday cards, like still trying to have phone calls if that's possible. Wherever possible, throwing out the challenge that they're still interested, that their children are still important to them, and that they'd like to have some sort of relationship. What's really important not to do is to make promises that you can't keep, because children often really hold on to those.
Dads, I think, need other dads to do things with. So yes, you can go and join the mothers group, or you can hang out with mothers where they're doing things with kids. That's sometimes really useful or beneficial. But I think dads also need other dads to talk to.
It's important for children to be informed about their parents' mental illness, so that they have the opportunity to respond to changes, variations in that parent's responses in a way that they can make sense of. To leave them out of the loop can leave them confused, can, with some children, leave them feeling that they're personally responsible for changes that have occurred in their environment. Children need to have the opportunity of some additional understanding of what's going on so that they can filter that and interpret it in an appropriate way.
With children over the age of 7, my advice is to generally respond to their questions as honestly as you can and match the sort of level of discussion to the sort of age of the child. So a 7, 8-year-old you're going to tell a little bit to, a 10, 11, 12-year-old you can probably share a lot more. It's been my experience, and the advice that I tend to give is that really young children, obviously you try and protect them as much as possible from what's going on, and I'm talking about children sort of under the age of 5. You might say one or two things in very simple language that they can understand, such as, mum or dad's not that well. But the critical thing to communicate if you're having those conversations is always that to share something about what they're doing to get better. And we know from the research around people with physical health issues, is that when you share with a child something about mum or dad's health problem, if you share what they're doing to get better, the child feels positive and hopeful around recovery of some sort.
But I think children, again, children knowing what's going on helps explain the world to them. They don't have to make up stories in their heads about what's happening, that if they're really good, mummy will be fine or daddy will be fine, that, you know, won't be so cross with me. I won't have to walk on eggshells. So if it can have open conversations about the symptoms and how it affects the parent, I think that's a very powerful position for a child.
You don't often find dads saying at the end of their life they wish they'd spent more time at work. What you do find is plenty of dads who, looking back on a period, say, gee, you know, I could have actually spent more time with the kids doing things than I have. So I think we might as well learn from that and start doing things now.
And I think that's a real key message that we have for families, that, you know, and for dads, is that being there, you know. If you're there, you're probably going to be doing some good stuff. But if you're not there, it's not happening.